30 years ago today, a riot in Crown Heights, Brooklyn tore the city apart. A cauldron of simmering racial tensions and polarizing politics grabbed the national spotlight and ripped the Band-Aid off wounds that continue to fester.
CBS 2's political reporter Marcia Kramer takes a look back at how what then Mayor David Dinkins called the city's gorgeous mosaic came apart.
Crown Heights was on fire. The looting, rioting, and violence that started on the night of August 19, 1991 would go on for 4 long days, injuring more than 150 cops and 38 civilians, and creating 2 martyrs, one black, the other Jewish. 7-year-old Gavin Cato and 29-year-old rabbinical student Yankel Rosenbaum.
They were, people struggling to live side by side.
All the things that had been happening in that community exploded that night. Burning of buildings, turning over cars, beating just anybody that they could get in their hand reach.
Today marks the 30th anniversary of Yankel's death, and the terrible circumstances of his death, to this day, remain impossible to comprehend.
Norman Steisel, the first deputy mayor under then-Mayor David Dinkins, Hazel Dukes, a then-Dinkins commissioner dispatched to the community, and Yoni Rosenbaum mourning the loss of his uncle. 3 people among many who still find the riots and what happened over the course of those 4 days hard to understand.
There was so much misinformation that was going on that night until you really couldn't get a sense of reason.
It started as an accident. A car in the motorcade of the Lubavitcher Grand Rebbe ran a red light and crashed into a building at the corner of Utica Avenue and President Street, hitting Gavin Cato and his cousin Angela.
They didn't take care of the children. They leave the children on the ground and take care of the drivers and the passengers from the car.
Gavin Cato's father talking about the spark, the misinformation, the rumor that touched off the violence.
The rumors spread very, very quickly that the Hatzolah people made a conscious decision to deal with their own.
We got to come together.
It wasn't true. Community peacemaker Richard Green, who was also on the scene, said a high-tech EMS ambulance was needed because the Hatzolah ambulance wasn't equipped to deal with the injuries sustained by the Cato kids.
The trauma and injuries to Gavin and Angela was such that they couldn't handle it. The argument is with the Jews. That's why I'm here. I don't have to be here. We got to understand each other.
Hazel Duke says that in their anger, fueled by feelings that the 2 Cato kids were not treated fairly, the rioters set upon Yankel Rosenbaum, who
was not involved, was not in the car, was not a part of the accident that happened. But unfortunately, he was caught in the crossfire.
That left Mayor Dinkins to deal with simmering racial tensions in 2 communities.
Say if it was a black guy behind the car and we hit a Jewish man, we would have been arrested right there. We would have been beat up on the spot, and then we would have been arrested.
A police response that at first was inadequate, and charges that since he went to Gavin Cato's funeral and not Yankel Rosenbaum's, he did visit Rosenbaum in the hospital before he died, that he was biased. Dinkins was furious.
I held his hand, he held mine, he looked up in my eyes, I looked at him, we talked to one another. The compassion and concern was demonstrated, and the fact that I was not there at 8 o'clock this morning in no way diminishes the concern that I have.
For the last 30 years, the violence, the images of Gavin Cato and Yankel Rosenbaum have continued to haunt the city. When I covered the riots 30 years ago, I said Dinkins' political future would be determined by how he handled things. It was. He lost a re-election for a 2nd term. His fate seemed to be sealed by a devastating report on the riots by then-Governor Mario Cuomo. Christina Dick?
It's amazing, Marcia, that you were able to find all those same people and then to hear their perspective 30 years later.
I just keep my Rolodex going and going and going.
But I mean, what perspective that gives you, right? It just reinforces exactly what happened and what the truth, where the truth really lies.
And to talk to these people 30 years later, their concept of the truth hasn't changed a bit.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that's really amazing about this. They remember it like it was yesterday.
Yes.
What's also amazing is that so much has changed, obviously, in the city, but so many of these problems go on and on and on.
Yep.
Things change, and then nothing changes.
In this case, nothing changed.
Unbelievable.
Great work, Marcia.
Thanks, Marcia.